undisclosed underground location. Living the American nightmare, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are now listening to
Notes from the Underground.
Observations over Strange Times, with your host, the narrator.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Notes from the Underground, and also part 2 of the music mini-series where I discuss and release music and recordings by unknown artists. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, take a quick minute and check it out. In that episode, I debuted the song Jim, Jack, and Johnny by local cover band Single Barrel Blackout. Now, once again, if you are an unknown or independent artist and would like your work showcased on an episode of the show, send an email with an MP3 demo or a link to a live performance to mail2theunderground21@gmail.com. That's mail, the number 2, theunderground21@gmail.com. Please only original material at this time. So, for this episode, we're going to take a dive into my personal library of material. I've got 2 pieces I'd like to talk about today. The first being the song that's currently playing under my voice, you may recognize as the intro to this podcast. And then after that, I've got an instrumental piece that was written back in 2017 as an intro to a concept album that I was working on at the time. It's a tale of 2 intros tonight, so let's get started. As I said before, the first song I'm going to talk about tonight is the intro for the podcast. Now, I find the story behind why this song was written to be comical, so I'd like to share that real quick. Years ago, I met an aspiring rapper. We got talking about music, and after I showed him some of my demos I was working on at the time, we struck up a deal where I would write a track for him, and then he would take the track and write his rap for it. Then, when his rap was written, he would come to me, I would record the track, record his rap, and then let him release everything under his own name. Okay. So, I went home and I spent the whole weekend working on this song. I literally pulled this thing out of thin air. I had no idea where to start. So I picked a tempo and I just picked up my bass guitar and started noodling around until I found something. It actually started out when I finally nailed down a bass line that I liked. It actually started out completely different to what you hear in the finished product. What ended up happening was I accidentally time shifted the bass line on the metronome, the tempo that I had picked out. And when I played it back, there was a completely different, way cooler groove, so I decided to run with that instead. So anyway, when the song was finally finished, I sent it off to the guy whose name was, his rap name was Siege, by the way. So that's kind of the working title of the song. It's called Siege. I never named it anything past the working title. But anyway, so I sent it off to him, and I'll never forget his response because it was the only time that anything I've ever produced has ever been referred to as, quote, ill. And I was honestly flattered by that. I mean, how often do you hear anything referred to as ill anymore? It's definitely not 1996. So after that, it was his turn to write his lyrics, and from that point on, I never heard anything from him again. And to be honest, I wasn't really surprised by that outcome, but at the same time, it was kind of a moment. So Siege, if you're out there listening, if you ever hear this, thanks for not using my song, I guess, because it ended up being the podcast intro. So thanks, bud. Appreciate that. Anyway, that's pretty much the story on that. That's the Cliff Notes version. Anyway, that track is actually probably my favorite of the songs that I have written, and it's partly because of that story. I like to refer to it as my failed rap song. So there you go on that. But now on to the main event for the night, the main song I'd like to debut and talk about for a brief second here. Now, this song, as I said before, was written to be the intro to a concept album that I was working on at the time. The idea behind the album was to take all of the songs that my friend Todd and I have written together, or a majority of them, the ones that followed the same sort of theme. Take those songs and put them together as an album. And the main theme of the album, in a way, kind of ended up being about the slow slide into insanity, or kind of dancing on that line of genius and insanity. So this track was intended to be the intro for that album. And you can see by the sort of dark tone that we'll get into in a minute with the song that it definitely was the setup for something of a darker nature. So this isn't one of my favorite tracks, but my favorite part of this track, oddly enough, being a guitar player, you'd think it would be the guitar solo. But my favorite part of this track is the piano part. Now, I'm not much of a piano player, to be completely honest. I can noodle around a little bit and make stuff up, but if you were to ask me to play something by Beethoven, I wouldn't even know where to start. So I'm pretty proud of the piano part. It's just a quick, short little piece, but you'll see how it all flows together, and it's definitely my favorite piano part. So without further ado, we're gonna break into the song now. Again, it never got past the working title of the intro, so that's all I've got to work with. Now, I hope you enjoy this. If you like what you hear, don't be afraid to leave a review. Check us out on the Facebook page. Check us out on the email. I'm working on a website. We are on Instagram. I've got more news, reviews, and interviews coming up for you soon, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, again, here is the intro to a concept album that I was working on that would have ended up being titled Test for Sound. So this is track 1 off of Test for Sound. Take it easy, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
This episode was brought to you by Northern Enlightenment Studios, a division of Northern Enlightenment Entertainment Media. We hope you have enjoyed this program. Goodbye.
In the